Well, Patti, I think this episode today is really going to blow people away with just an idea of making money that our industry, I don't think has really thought of so far.
I agree. I mean, it's a wide open opportunity, it seems to me, especially for the ISO agent who's out there, with a good book of, sizable book of restaurants.
Yeah, this is a way to make 500, 600, 700 basis points,
right?
And not 50 or 60 or 5 or 6.
Right.
This is an exponentially larger opportunity. Talking about delivery, of course, and it's just incredible when you really understand how the DoorDash and Uber Eats models work and how they make money. The fact that you can get a piece of that is kind of crazy, and so I'm really excited about that interview today. And then tell us about the Insiders Report.
We're gonna talk a little bit about fraud, and not surprising, fraud's been upticking since the pandemic took hold, but I think people will be really surprised to hear some of these data points I bring together.
Awesome. And then in the questions in the field, I just answer a really simple question. When is it the right time to go out on your own? When is it the right time to go from W-2 to 1099 or from executive at a processing company to CEO of your own? And, the short version is it's your motives. And so we talk about why do you want to see that change in your life and understanding if it's the right motive or if you're better placed working at a company where you have that structure to move forward. So with all that said, Patti, I'm ready to go. Let's dive into our interview.
Let's dive in, James.
Welcome to the Merchant Sales Podcast.
Hey everybody, Patti and I are joined today by John Sarabia, and John is a partner at Dylish. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing fantastic here in California. Got amazing weather. So
yes.
So I guess it's a Dylish day, huh?
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Patti is already waxing eloquent.
Had to get one in there.
So today I'm really excited about this conversation. I've had the opportunity to talk to John a few times, and what he's doing is really unique. We're going to be talking about how ISOs and agents can add margin and profit to their accounts through these delivery services, mainly for restaurants. And so before we dive into that, John, I know you're a first-time guest on the podcast. Give us your backstory a little bit. How did you get into this crazy industry, and how did you end up founding Dylish?
Absolutely. So I've been in the merchant services industry for over 16 years. Started in October of 2005.
Okay.
And as you know, back then we were selling the Narit 2085s, and
I remember those.
And at the time, the 3750 terminal had a little slot, and we would tell people, merchants, the future one day we're going to have EMV chip cards like they do in Europe. So you better get this machine. This is the best machine.
Right.
And 10, 15 years went on, and we finally got it now.
Right. And then they had to replace all their terminals anyway.
That's right. They all had new terminals by then.
Absolutely, yes. It's been a very interesting journey. One of the things getting into it that I loved about it is, one, I studied international business. I like hearing stories about business owners, how they started their business and why they started their business.
Sure.
So that was perfect fit for me to be in this industry, visiting business owners. Now, as far as the residual income, obviously being your own boss, working for yourself, putting in the hours, and like people say, a lot of times entrepreneurs, they're entrepreneurs. They'll put in 80 hours a week working for themselves because they know what their results are going to be.
Right.
They know their self-worth.
Yeah.
Where working hourly, you may not get that same.
Exactly. That same drive and determination.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. So so we've been in this industry for a long time, and as you all know, merchant services is merchant services. There's not a lot of pizzazz about it.
Right.
Where we've always been unique as far as saving business owners money, and everybody's out there saving business owners money.
Right.
But where we've been unique is aside from that is the customer service. So,
Sure.
Starting off as a sales rep, I've always said it's David and Goliath. Yes, Wells Fargo's on every corner, Bank of America's on every corner. But when you have a customer service issue, you're going to call an 800 number. Okay.
Right.
With us, you're going to call us directly. This is my cell phone. You're going to call me directly. Right. So that's how we've been able to compete. And as you know, we're always looking for the next technologies.
Right.
We were selling POS systems at $5,000-$10,000. Now you're selling the Clover stations at $1,500.
Right.
So they become so much more affordable. Now you have the tablets.
Right.
But as a sales rep and as an ISO, you're always looking for that area to have an edge and to,
Right.
you know, the new technology that's coming and how to get ahead of the game. Now, how we came up with Dylish was just about 2 years ago. We were looking at this, and we already knew DoorDash and Uber Eats and
Yep.
Grubhub. We saw that Yelp bought out Grubhub, and
Right.
we saw the connection there. And we noticed that if we had a restaurant doing $100,000 a month in sales, well, now they're only doing 95 or 90,000 because
Right.
10,000 is going to these delivery apps.
Right.
We saw that as the future as Uber became Uber. Before nobody would get into somebody's car,
Right.
hitchhiking.
Right.
Now it's normal. Everybody
Right.
takes Uber.
Right.
Same thing with the delivery apps. And
Yeah.
we basically at that time said, we reached out to somebody and said, we need a developer that could start developing this app for us.
Right.
And we'll put them on the payroll, get them going. And,
Right.
so this went on for about a year and a half.
Mhm.
And we had just been in testing this past year, last year in January. So by the time the pandemic hit, we had already been in the first restaurant. We were testing it probably for about 3 to 4 months.
Wow. Great timing.
Perfect timing.
Working out all the bugs. And then when the pandemic hit, we were like, we need to launch.
Yeah.
Like this
Now.
it's like this is the perfect storm. I mean, we didn't plan a pandemic. We didn't say, okay, this is we're going to get this ready for when a pandemic happens.
Right.
But as we all know, come March of last year,
Right.
the world stopped,
Right.
and everybody was, let's order food. Let's order food to go. Let's order food for delivery.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that trend was already there, but all of a sudden the pandemic hit and just accelerated it like 4 or 5 years in one day.
Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the key things that we did with Dylish is that we so the way it works with Grubhub, Eat24, and all these other companies, they typically charge between 25 to 30% to the restaurant.
Right.
Okay. We created Dylish where we charged between 8 to 10%. Us as Dylish, but working with other agents are able to charge anywhere between 8 to 12%, and that can be to avoid the monthly fees. But it's still we are cutting the fees dramatically. And even let's say we do have one client here in LA, a sushi restaurant that never used any delivery company. So it was perfect. They're already our client. They started using our app. They do $75,000 a month in delivery. Okay.
Wow.
So let's say we charge them $7,500.
Mm-hmm.
If they would have been with one of the other companies, they would have paid $14,000 or $21,000.
Right.
Right.
So I guess what you're saying is, and kind of, because of course we're going to get into all the detail a little bit later here, but as far as just big picture, what you're saying is, and it really leads really well into my next question is, what are the challenges that are facing these restaurants today as they look at the available options of, Grubhub, Uber Eats? And it sounds like the first one is just, cost, and just they're taking so much of the revenue. And I think a lot of agents don't fully understand. It's like you're going into a restaurant and literally saying you're paying 30% of this revenue to this company. We can do it for 7, 8, 9, whatever, percentage. So talk more about that. And then what are the other challenges from a big picture? What are the other challenges that are facing restaurants right now as they were also hit with this pandemic and trying to figure out this delivery stuff?
Yes, absolutely. We've seen a lot of restaurants. I mean, we've seen from some restaurants say, hey, we kind of like this. We don't have to have as much staff. We can, we'll do delivery all day long. It's perfect, perfect for us.
Sure.
And then, you got you have where some people where it's hurt is like where they have the ambiance and people go there for dinner. Typically, a lot of sushi restaurants, a lot of steakhouses. Most people are not going to order a medium rare steak to go.
Right.
Because it's not going to be done right.
Yep.
So
and your sushi is going to be soggy.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and, sushi restaurants, steakhouses, that's a date night. That's like,
Right. That's
I'm
an
going
experience.
I'm going to pay a little bit more premium because
Right.
of the ambiance, and the food is being prepared for me. We're going to get some
Sure.
drinks and so forth. So, that is a big challenge. Delivery is not a solution for them, and pickup, but like the sushi restaurant that we have as a client, they have amazing food.
Right.
So it's gone very well for them.
It's interesting too. It's like, this is a little bit off topic, I guess, but you have to zoom out for 1 second about that, because I think it's so interesting you bring this up. I actually think there's a big opportunity though for the restaurants, the higher end restaurants, to figure this out. I'll give you a really interesting personal example. So I do DoorDash and that kind of stuff all the time. And I got hooked on it in the pandemic, and here I am still doing it, even though the restaurants are open. And it's funny you say this. I literally went 3 different times. I ordered a steak from Outback Steakhouse because they're one of the only decent steak places on the DoorDash app in my area. And you're correct. Every single time I got it, it wasn't done right. It was too rare or something like that. But I'll say what's interesting about it, and what struck me is, I am willing to do that. And there's actually a lot of people that are willing, because I actually want the food that tastes really, really good. And I don't really care. I'm totally fine paying for it. But I think you're right that there's that challenge. But I think it just goes to show that there's so much opportunity here in the delivery side. There's so many restaurants where even now it's like, we look back at cash discounting, and it used to be, you can never do cash discounting in a fine dining restaurant. That's never going to happen. Now it happens all the time. And I think it's the same thing. I think anything right now where we think, well, you're never going to be able to deliver sushi, somebody is going to figure out how to deliver sushi that tastes amazing, how to deliver a steak that's exactly done right. And I think that's the next challenge for a lot of these food service, delivery. And it just goes to show how important figuring this out, is.
Yes. And then another challenge is, something like with POS systems, the challenge is training the employees. The employees, they don't like the system. They like the old system.
Yes.
And, those are some of the challenges.
Right. Sure.
A lot of it is training and them learning. And a lot of times they're afraid of change. But with the delivery system, it took the nation by storm over during this pandemic. So, but as the millennials come in, you can do everything on your phone now. Right. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can have food delivered to your house. You never even met the person. They dropped it off on your doorstep, and you got your food. Right. You can buy cars people buy cars through Carvana now.
Right.
They didn't haggle with the dealership at all. The car was delivered. They're very happy. And that is the future. Now, one of the other things that we're adding here in April is the indoor dining feature, which is the QR code that will be placed on the table, and customers can sit down right away. They can scan it. They can look at the menu. They can order from their phone or order from the waiter or the waitress. Right. And they can pay the waiter or the waitress, or they can just pay on their phone.
Right.
I have to interject there for just a second, if you don't mind, because I'm older than you guys are. And, when you get older, your eyes are not what they used to be. And I, the other day, had my first experience with one of those QR code menus. And, and I have it's not real nearby, but I mean, I don't have the tiny phone. I have a fairly good size phone. And I found that reading the menu on my phone was a pain. I mean, it was really, I would have to like really expand it, and then I had to keep shifting back and forth. I'm wondering, and again, I'm a baby boomer. So, but as people age, they're going to end up being like me. And I'm wondering, I just got to throw that out. Is that a consideration that you all have wondered about? Is there a way, that you could address that?
Yeah, I think that, that for the most part, restaurants will still be offering the traditional menus. Right. But a bigger percentage of the people are going to start using these menus.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea. I thought it was really cool. I'm like, oh wow, I could do. I had heard about it, but I hadn't been to a restaurant where I could do it.
Like when the pandemic started, it's like people were washing their groceries before they brought them in
Right.
the house. So
Oh, yeah.
everybody became like a germophobic.
That's
Right.
true.
So that's one of the reasons why it comes into play, that people don't want to touch menus.
Right.
Oh, no, I agree with you 100% there. I mean,
and I think, yeah, I think the big picture is that, like you said, I think this goes to all kinds of technology. I think anytime you're trying to fully automate something, and I've learned this from our statement analysis, it's like you can only push AI, you can only push technology so far.
right.
And then you do want to have that human option, because no matter what the process is, in this case, it's ordering food. Some people are going to want to talk to a person. Some people are going to want to look at a menu. So the idea is reduce cost as much as you can by automating things, but you still got to leave the other kind of legacy
Right.
systems in place to some extent, right?
And yeah, and I think, in this case, probably just to throw out, I mean, and what helped me was, I looked at waitress came over and said, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking at the breakfast items here. Just tell me which one is,
Right.
which one's vegetarian or whatever."
Right.
And,
Right.
and she was really helpful. And I think that was, and what interested me was it was my first sit down restaurant in a year. And it was spaced out tables, and they just had one waitress, and she was perfectly adept at taking care of everybody because it was so automated. So I mean, I have to admit that is a really cool in-dining experience. But can we just I just wanted to sort of segue into another question, if you don't mind. And you know, we all have heard about DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats, and it seems to be sort of like a big thing, right? I mean, James, I finally found that one of them will deliver out in the sticks where I
There you
live.
go. Congratulations.
But all they would deliver was Popeyes and Taco Bell and
Right. Wasn't any good
McDonald's.
stuff, right?
It was, it wasn't any good stuff, and it was all these big chains. And so I'm wondering, I think this is what your service gets at is, how can a mom and pop restaurant offer their own delivery service, without going through these big mega companies? And, maybe you could give us an idea of how your model works, and maybe I know you alluded to the fees a moment ago, but if you could get back to that, sure.
Absolutely. That's a very good question. So there's a couple things that we do when we bring on a new restaurant. Is one, we say, do you currently have a website?
Uh-huh.
If they say yes, we're going to put a link on their website that says order now, which will automatically pop up the app and the menu. If they say no, we don't, then we would say, okay, for example, we're doing one in Connecticut, Basilico Pizza. They have their own website, but they want us to create a different one because they want to do their ordering there, and they want us to do the ordering over here. So we're just going to do Basilico Pizza to go website.
Okay.
And then that the app is created. We do the marketing. We give them about 1,000 flyers with their QR code. They can pass out to their existing customers, new customers. They can put them on their tables. We do Facebook ads. We do Instagram ads. And when we do sign them up as a new merchant, we say, look, we have a contract with Postmates to do the delivery. The business owner can say, no, I want to do my own delivery. So then we'll set it up on the app that they have in-house delivery.
Okay.
So they're able to control that.
Right. And the marketing is you're doing it, but they have control over what kind of marketing goes out. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what we do is when we create a flyer for them, we take their logo and we create a flyer with the QR code. And then before we obviously send to print, we send it to them, say, do you approve of this marketing material?
Right. Okay.
They say, yes, we approve. Then we send it off to the printer, and then we do that for them. And then they can do their own marketing on their own as well.
Sure.
So let's zoom out a little bit more, because again, I want to, this is such a new concept for a lot of our listeners, and so I want to make it really clear. What we're talking about is you as an ISO or an agent, you can run a DoorDash type model using a partner like Dylish, and you can actually bring in those revenue streams and make money on them. So John, what I'd like for you to do is let's break down these different revenue streams and these costs for just a second. So most of our listeners have no idea what Postmates is. That's the first time they've ever even heard of it. They probably don't even know that exists. So just talk to us from a higher level business, perspective. What are the available revenue sources, both from the business and the customer? And then what are the expenses that are associated with making this whole model work?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things is we give the business owner an option to pay a monthly fee.
Okay.
To take care of all the software. So the first one is $49.99 a month,
Okay.
and this is they don't need any equipment.
That's a software fee.
Yep, just a software fee.
Okay.
Now for $99 a month, they now get the tablet. We send them out a tablet,
Okay.
a Bluetooth printer, and the stand for the tablet. Okay. And it's very similar to what Grubhub and the other companies send out to them as well.
So this is where you need something to realize that an order was created. So at the $49 level, they would have maybe the laptop pulled up or something where they could check orders that came in, right?
Yes, they would get emailed to them.
Email, or they can pay a little more and actually get some hardware at their business so that when one of the customers makes an order through their app that you've created, that Dylish has created for them, then they're going to see it pop up and maybe even print through the Bluetooth printer in the kitchen or something.
Absolutely. And in some situations, some restaurant owners they'll say, you know what, I just charge me a 12% flat fee, send me the equipment, but don't charge me the monthly.
Right.
So that's an option as well.
Sure.
So those are the basic costs. Now we do set it up. We do set up a USA ePay as well. So there's a transaction fee on that. Probably about say 5 cents and maybe a $10 monthly fee.
Right. Sure.
Okay.
But then as far as just big picture revenue side, so you've got this subscription coming in. It's largely going to equipment costs and things of that nature. Then talk to us about what the business paid. You mentioned 12%, 10%, 8%. What is that for? Why are they paying that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the way that it breaks down is this. So let's say we charge a business owner, say 10%.
Okay.
What we're going to do is we're going to take 10% is going to go back to marketing. Okay. So let's say if they did $20,000 in volume, they paid $2,000. 10% of that is $200 went back to marketing. So that means creating more ads for them, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, and so forth. Then you have $1,800 left over, which obviously
now that's a revenue that can be split between you and the ISO and the agents. And all that.
Exactly, and that's where it's split between us and the agent or the ISO. But it's going to vary for different ISOs.
Sure.
We'll tailor it to each individual ISO.
Sure. Now let's close this loop. So the other big thing is the actual delivery. So of course there is a cost to have someone deliver this food through Postmates. Let's say we're using Postmates as an example. Yeah. How does that cost get covered? Talk about the customer side.
Okay, very good. So basically the customer that is ordering the food is going to pay a delivery fee based on how many miles away they are, and then they're going to pay a service fee.
Right.
Okay, which is, let's just say, for example, the delivery fee is $3 and the service fee is $2.
And they might add a tip for the driver as well, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So pretty much that revenue comes in, and most of that is there really just to offset the Postmates.
Yeah, so that revenue is going to Postmates.
Got it. Okay. So got it. And then the last piece of this, I would imagine, would be the credit card processing. So now you're not losing the processing revenue because, you're actually processing it through USA ePay, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So now the merchant's also paying the credit card processing fees on this revenue, which everybody on our call totally understands that model. So let me restate. I like to do this on our podcast. Let me restate what you just said. And you tell me if I missed anything so our audience can understand what we're talking about. So we want to go to our existing restaurant clients that are using DoorDash or Uber Eats, and they're paying 20 to 30% of total gross revenue that's going through these apps. They are paying to these apps, and their customer is also paying a delivery fee to cover the delivery cost. Absolutely. So we're saying, and we're not able to do the credit card processing because it's running through DoorDash or Uber Eats. Yes. So we go to them and say, stop paying 30%, stop paying 20%. Instead, pay me 10%, right? And we are then going to have, and that's actually revenue. That's literally like, what is that? 1,000 basis points. So that's the revenue that's coming in. You're going to 10% of it's going to go to marketing and other things, but that's going to leave a lot of margin that can be split up there. Then in addition to that, the cost of delivery is going to be covered by the person making the order. They're going to pay that delivery fee and that service charge. Maybe they tip the driver. So that's how that's going to cover the delivery, which you're running through Postmates. And Postmates is a company that has these drivers that are like for contract, and your restaurant can use this network of drivers to deliver the food.
Or their own.
Or their own, or they could use their own. It doesn't really matter. You're charging them the 10% either way. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Then, and you're not making money off the delivery side anyway. That's just if you need delivery, use Postmates and it's covered by the customer either way. And then the final piece of it is the credit card processing, which now you're going to run through the USA ePay. And so I would assume if the ISO has a processing company that if they process with USA ePay, they could do the processing account, or is that something that you guys run the processing yourself?
Yeah, so we do have a couple options. We offer them. Is one, you run the processing through us, and then we do the split with you. The other option is you do your own processing, and then we just charge you obviously the monthly fee for the software, and then a transaction fee. Which right now we're looking at the transaction fee being about 20 cents. But it's really small compared to what they're making. Right. 1,000 basis points.
Right. Yeah, it's, and I think it's so important for everybody listening that, they're maybe getting interested and then they hear a number like 20-cent transaction fee. And if you're not careful, you could be at the old mindset where you're thinking of Schedule A cost and things like that. This is not that, because we're not talking about splitting up 30 basis points. We're talking about splitting up 1,000 basis points.
Right.
So the opportunity here is not in the processing. The processing is almost a necessary evil in this case, because the real money is in you're charging the business owner literally 10% of gross revenue, which is insane for our industry. And so there's just a ton of profit there, right?
Yes. And as you well know, being in the merchant service industry, when we get an account and we can charge them, when we're making 10 basis points, 20 basis, 30 basis points,
right.
We're like, that's a good account.
Yeah, right.
Right. Here, imagine making 600,
Yeah, now you're looking at 600 basis points here.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
that's sweet.
And let me say this too, because I think this is really important for people to understand. DoorDash, Uber Eats, these companies are still very, very vulnerable to an idea like this for two reasons, in my opinion. Number one is they're actually not great yet. What I mean by that is, I'll give you a really good example of this. So we like to go to Jersey Mike's. Okay, I think a lot of people would know this. Jersey Mike's subs, they make subs.
Great subs.
Yes, great subs. So I really love Jersey Mike's. My family enjoys that. So we were using DoorDash to get our Jersey Mike's. Well, my wife really likes getting some of the sauce and stuff on the side. So there's special instructions, right?
Right.
When it went through DoorDash, they never got it right, and they wouldn't allow us to put some of the notes that we wanted. So I was in there the other day, and I see a QR code, just like you're talking about, download and I already had their app, but I didn't know that they did their own delivery. I had no idea. Since then, this was probably 2 months ago, I've ordered twice as many times from them. Every time it's been exactly correct.
Yep.
Because it's their app and it ran through their system. And they got the notes and they did it right. And it came to us faster, better. I'm like, so to me, most people are like that. They have their 7 or 8 restaurants that they frequent often. Their pizza place, whatever it is. And so customers are absolutely willing to have a separate app for these 4, 5, 6 restaurants in a little folder on their phone to go to make these orders, because they know the service is going to be better. And to your point, there still are a lot of restaurants that are not even on these apps, or they're on the app, but they haven't taken the time to really customize it. And so it's not a good experience. And so I think this is a huge opportunity. So go ahead.
And I think the other opportunity too, James, that you alluded to a moment ago, is you also get to, as a merchant services rep, you get to keep the residual. You're not losing the processing.
Of course, it's a no-brainer that it's a huge opportunity for our industry. The question is, are restaurants going to be receptive? And I think the answer is yes. So tell us from your experience, John. A lot of reps might be listening now and thinking, this sounds great. ISOs are like, this sounds interesting. They want to get out there and sell it. If they have a big list of restaurants and they're calling through them, what do you say? What's the 1-minute elevator pitch for this thing? What do you say to a restaurant?
Yeah. So a lot of times, I like to share the experiences that we're having with other restaurants. And, I'll tell a customer, look, the first thing I'll go to a restaurant, I'll say, hi, I see you're using DoorDash, Uber Eats, you got all of them. I say, how are the fees? And, you can see it. You can
Great
see it in their face.
I love the open-ended question there. That's great.
Exactly. You can see it in their face right away. They're like, yeah, it's like something we have to have. The world is changing.
Necessary evil, costly.
Exactly. And I say, well, let me just show you one of the new apps that we created. It's called Dylish, and we're able to create an app specifically for your restaurant, which gives you all the power, the marketing, and so forth. It's branded specifically for you. And we're only going to charge you 10% as opposed to 25 or 30%.
Right.
And then that's like, oh, wow. Then they start asking, well, how are my customers going to know about this? Say, well, what we do is we're going to put the website that we build for you. We're going to put it on your Yelp page. We're going to put it on your Google page. And we're going to put an order Dylish on your Google page. We're going to create 1,000 flyers for you that you can give to all your customers. And that's how they're going to get to know you, because everything is about word of mouth.
Right.
So you're giving them back the power of grassroots advertising.
Sure.
And getting their customers one customer at a time.
Right. Right.
We rarely don't have a lot of resistance when we're going in, but sometimes the challenging part is they're used to having all these orders coming in right now on these delivery.
Right.
So they're scared to just say, we're going to cut them off completely.
Sure.
And go with Dylish. So we'll say, you know what?
Go with both.
Yeah, go with both. And
get a transition.
And in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road, you're not going to need them anymore because you're going to build up your own app.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the thing I love about it is, again, this is one of the things that makes these other platforms so vulnerable, is that these other apps, there's nothing about them that is sticky. In other words, if DoorDash ultimately does have to, I'm getting food from this other restaurant. So if they want to put something in the bag, like a flyer that says next time order on our app, you know what I mean? There's really nothing, ultimately it's still my customer as a restaurant.
Absolutely. And then another very good, nice feature that we have in our app is the restaurant owner can go into their app and say, we're sold out of this item for today, and they can shut it off.
Right.
They can change the pricing on there if they can go in themselves. With a lot of these other apps, they got to email. They got to email them and ask them to change. And this could take a day or two for that to even happen.
Right. And now you have bad customer experiences. People are ordering things you don't have. And it's just I've had that experience with DoorDash where it really is a mess, because what happens too is then you always end up getting caught in the middle. DoorDash says it's the restaurant's fault. The restaurant says it's DoorDash's fault. And of course the customer just wants to get some good food. So I this is so interesting. This is one of these conversations where I know we could just keep talking about this for forever.
For a long time.
But I know most of our listeners right now are saying, please, Patti and James, shut up and tell us how to contact this guy. So tell us, where do you want to send ISOs and agents that want to partner with you? Where should they go?
Yeah, so they can go to our website, which is www.dylish.com. And that's DYLISH. Okay. Awesome. They could also reach out to me. Is it okay if I give my number?
You can if you want to, but you might get a few phone calls.
Yeah. So they could call me directly at 562-536-8828. That's 562-536-8828. Or John at Dylish. It's JOHN at Dylish, DYLISH.com.
Awesome.
Excellent.
John, such an interesting concept. I have a feeling that, and I told you this on the call before, I have a feeling that we'll be, I'll be seeing in my LinkedIn announcements in 24 months, Dylish, purchased by,
Yeah.
I think this is such a cool technology. All of the big acquirers are going to hear about this and start salivating. So I wish you great success. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing this idea and this concept with us. I know a lot of agents and ISOs will be thanking you profusely over the next 12 to 18 months as they cash in on this opportunity.
Yeah, John, it's really cool, slick thing you have going there. Good luck.
Thank you guys so much. And just one more quick thing. Yeah, we've signed up over 350 accounts during the pandemic for this app. So
nice.
We're doing really good, and the sky's the limit. And thank you guys again so much for taking the time and interviewing me today.
Awesome. Hey, thanks.
Thank you. Well, now, James, it's our time to give a shout out to our sponsor, Valor Paytech. I think I was thinking of Valor briefly after we did our interview with John, and it's sort of like to kind of continue the eating metaphor.
Yes.
Valor is your soup to nuts solution.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're talking about a gateway. We're talking about devices, virtual terminals, e-commerce, cash discounting, pay at the table. I mean, everything is there.
Yep, I agree. So if you have not gotten your demo yet, definitely head over to ccsalespro.com/Valor, VALOR, ccsalespro.com/Valor. Just today, Patti, I talked to another ISO that did their first deal with Valor. I think it was a 30 terminal deal. Went amazing, went really smooth, cash discounting and all that. And so it's really been rewarding now. We've been doing this so long, I've actually started to get the emails and the feedback of, hey, I'm working with Valor. It's working really well. So it's exciting. Sure.
That's great to hear too. It's great when we hear from people that are doing it. It makes us feel even more like we're continuing to bring you, valuable information.
And now, here is questions from the field with James Shepard.
So, Patti, one of the most common questions I get asked is, when is it the right time to go out on my own? Whether you're an executive at a processing company, you're thinking about starting your own shop, you're a W-2 agent, and you're thinking about becoming a 1099 agent. And I thought it was so interesting today because it really sparked my mind to think about this because of our interview.
Right.
If you remember towards the beginning of that interview, John was talking about how they say entrepreneurs work 80 hours a week because they know what the outcome is going to be. And what I find in talking to salespeople and answering this question is a common theme. And that theme is there are two types of people that want to leave an employment opportunity to find an independent or a business type opportunity.
Right.
The first ones are those who are lazy. And
I was just going to say that. Right.
And they don't like that there's this boss that's making them work so hard.
Right.
Let me tell you in no uncertain terms, if you go out on your own, you will fail.
Yes.
You will fail quickly. You will fail badly. That is not a good opportunity. Entrepreneurship is probably the worst treatment for laziness.
Oh, yes. And there's so many people I've seen who, I've been on my own for almost 40 years. And people are like, oh, I'm going to do that. And I'm like, you better have a lot of time.
Right.
You better be a workaholic.
And so then this is what I find interesting about this though, right? So like, it's so easy for people to hear that listening right now that are W-2 or whatever. And they're saying, okay, so you're saying because I'm an employee, I am lesser, I'm less disciplined. I'm less. No. What I'm saying is your personality and your situation in life may not lend itself well to entrepreneurship. Right. And so there are certain people that have a personality that they do better with somebody else being the idea person and the go-getter and the driven. And they are so good at taking those ideas and executing them that you can end up making a fortune. And this idea that the only people that make a lot of money are independent is ridiculous.
No.
Almost all of the wealthiest people in the world are CEOs or something of a company that not a stock owner. They may have options, but they're running the company. They're a VP of sales. They're an executive and they're making millions of dollars through private equity or whatever it is. And so this idea that you can't achieve big things as an employee or even to achieve independence at some level is ridiculous. And so, I think it's very important to understand that it's not saying that employment is bad, but as I talk to people and they're like, oh, I want to just be on my own. I'm like, why? Well, my boss this, my boss that. Stop.
Right.
That is not the reason. Let me tell you the reason that you should go on your own. And this is the reason I did. And the reason every other successful person ends up going on their own. And that is that working at a company, they will not allow you to work as hard or as creatively as you want.
Yes.
That is the only reason to go on your own. Or another reason is you recognize that your skill set at your current employment, you realize that you're already at peak performance, but you've hit a ceiling where you cannot get rewarded more then you're already getting rewarded. And so you leave to do an opportunity on your own where there's not that ceiling.
Right. In fact, that was the reason why I went out on my own. It was like, either I had to, go into this management track where I was going to max out in no time.
Right. It's not where you want to go. You want to be the expert.
I wanted to be the expert. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to, be the person who has hands-on, and that, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So,
great insight, James.
Thanks, Patti. Yeah. So I would say if you're out there and you're thinking about making the transition, really audit your motives, because your motives ultimately are what's going to answer this question for you. Why, I'll give you one last really quick example, because it's such a common one in our industry, is salespeople who say, I want to build a team. Why do you want to build a team? And the answer is either because I want to give back, I want to train people, I want to change people's lives, and I want to work even harder because I just want to see more change happen. Or the real reason is I'm tired of prospecting. I want somebody else to do it for me. Okay. If that's your reason, hire somebody to do prospecting for you. Call it what it is. You still need to close the deals. But if you bring on a team, you're going to have to train them. Like, there's going to be more work. Anytime you want to get to a higher level, it's going to require more effort. It's going to require more discipline, more character, not less. And so don't confuse the fact of saying you want to be your own boss with saying you don't want a boss. Because those are two very different things.
Two very different. Yeah. Thanks, James. That was really good.
Thanks, Patti.
This is the Insider's Report with Patti Murphy.
James, the pandemic, it's forced a lot of people to press the pause button on business as usual, as we've talked about a lot, but not fraudsters. If anything, they're more emboldened, as they tend to be in situations of crisis.
Right.
A pair of TransUnion reports reveals a significant uptick in digital frauds against businesses, as well as a surge in pandemic-related fraud schemes targeting consumers.
Right.
And also SIFT, which is an online fraud fighting company that has clients like DoorDash, which we've talked about, McDonald's and Wayfair. They saw a 69% spike in the average value of fraudulent purchase attempts last year.
Wow.
It's not a big surprise that so much shopping has shifted online.
Sure.
But it's still significant. And to kind of give you a sense of some of the really mega problems that were identified by SIFT, some of these just blew my mind. A $5 million watch purchase. Whoa,
how did that get past the business that,
yeah, right. I mean, apparently it didn't get past the business. It was an attempt. These were attempts that they caught.
Right.
But, 5 million right there. I'd say, who's spending $5 million online, right?
Right. Wow.
There was a bunch of cryptocurrency, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency expected fraud attempts.
Right.
There was a $50,000 political donation.
Okay.
And a $60,000 worth of Super Bowl tickets that somebody tried to buy. They've also identified a new fraud ring. I mean, these guys are crafty. They're calling them cart crashers.
Okay. Cart crashers.
Cart crashers. And what they do is they set up bogus charitable causes along with the necessary recipient accounts for the donations. Okay. And then they use stolen cards or card numbers and fake usernames or emails to test the cards. And they do this with automated tools that allow them to do it thousands at a time by donating to these bogus causes. $5 donations.
Wow.
If the cards test out appropriately, as good, then they go on shopping sprees. And this is interesting because I've read another statistic recently, and it's actually not totally off the mark because I know my charitable giving has gone up in the last year. But they've seen since the pandemic started a 21% increase in charitable donations, online donations, which is pretty remarkable. So this spike that SIFT recognized, this 69% spike in the average value of attempted frauds. Just to put that in perspective, in 2019, the value of the average suspected fraud was $1,212.
Okay.
In 2020, it was $2,049.
Hmm.
And that goes along. I think that trend for me seems to, parallel what we're seeing in chargeback volumes, right?
Okay.
Because,
Sure. That makes sense.
Sure, companies like Sift might be doing Uber and so forth, but that these fraudsters aren't focusing their concentration there.
Right.
And then TransUnion's report, they saw a 46% increase in fraudulent digital transactions worldwide last year.
Wow.
In the U.S., we were less hard hit, 22%.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And, the hardest hit were telecommunications, where they saw a 58% fraud spike, all tied to credit cards. Travel and leisure, almost 30%.
Sure.
And gaming, 50%. Separately, TransUnion found that 36% of consumers worldwide were targets of digital frauds related to COVID-19 in the first 3 months of 2021.
Wow.
That compares to 36%, per month, each month for these 3 months.
Right.
Last April, it was 29%.
Wow.
So, and that in the U.S. it was 38%, which is even higher.
Yeah.
So, I think that, to me, the bottom line here is, you got a lot of people cooped up at home with a lot of fear mongering and, stockpiling and so forth.
Extra cash laying around
because they're not spending it by going out all the time.
Yep.
And then the fraudsters are just itching to take advantage of these differences, these changes.
And I think where you'll see as an ISO or an agent, where you'll really see this come into play, is with underwriting.
Yeah.
I've had agents and ISOs say, hey, all of a sudden, this one processing company I've always worked with, they're not approving accounts as easily.
Yes.
Well, this is why, because they're on a heightened level of alert looking for these fraudulent companies that, everybody you just mentioned, these charitable organizations that are fake, they all have to have a credit card processing account.
Yes, they do.
So they're all trying to set that up with you and with your company. And so the underwriting departments are on a heightened alert right now.
And that's what that's kind of where I was going with this, is that especially because, our guys are dealing with a lot of the smaller merchants and mid-sized merchants, and that the fraudsters are targeting them even more. I remember a few years ago visiting a friend who runs a little, I don't know what you call it. I call it a foo-foo shop. They sell everything from incense to,
they sell everything and nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
What you want to splurge, when you want to just splurge money for something, right?
Right.
And they were telling me, I was asking them about security and, what they were doing. And they're like, oh, we don't worry about that. We're too small. Nobody's going to bother us. And I was like, oh, no. You guys are far more vulnerable because you don't have these sophisticated fraud tools that the big guys have. And it's easier to pull one, over on you.
Yep.
So, I definitely think this is something worth holding on to and understanding how this is going to impact your portfolio.
I agree. Thanks for sharing that, Patti.
Sure thing, James.
This episode of the Merchant Sales Podcast was brought to you by Valor Paytech, the technology company that is revolutionizing cash discounting and surcharging with innovative features like dual mid support, waive the fee options, and even adding non-cash adjustment charges to tips. Now, all of this is made possible by a variety of technology devices and solutions such as gateways, tabletop point of sale devices, and features like SMS text messaging and e-invoicing, all with cash discounting in mind. Valor Paytech, bold ideas, smart execution. Make sure you head over to ccsalespro.com/Valor, VALOR, ccsalespro.com/Valor, VALOR. Schedule your free demo today and watch videos and learn more about this amazing technology solution.
Thank you for listening to the Merchant Sales Podcast. Whether you are an industry veteran, processing executive, or just trying to learn about the payment space, we appreciate your time. The Merchant Sales Podcast is a joint production of greensheet.com and ccsalespro.com, and we hope you will tune in next week for more information and tips on building your merchant services business.